Providence Television International, the game changer, taking you to the outer limits of television.
Welcome to this special program. Today is Africa Day, and we'll be looking at the issues that border on the positive development of the continent. I am Ugbebo Ikikwa.
And I am Emmanuel Legariba. I'd like to welcome you very warmly to this program. So please join us throughout the program. Thank you very much.
And yes, you'll be wondering, I know that for so many people, you'll be like, oh, Africa Day, we will have Africa Day. And that's why this program was specially put together, especially by the CEO of the organization, to enlighten the public. And my first question is this, sir. Why Africa Day?
Well, Africa Day because today the Organization of African Unity was established. Okay. This day on the 25th of May, 1963. And it was put together by a group of founding fathers. I'll go into their names very shortly. It went on and on until the 9th of July 2002 when it became African Union. All right? But I'm disturbed because if you put two of them side by side and trying to juxtapose, if you juxtapose them properly, you'll find that AU has become a kind of misnomer. What does it mean really, African Union? Whereas we're talking about Organization of African Unity. It made more sense really at that point in time, but they changed it, and what benefits have we derived from the change in name? So, but a lot of countries across the continent of Africa have declared today as a public holiday, just to celebrate that Africa, yes, in spite of our huge natural resources, we're still there. We're still there. It has not been fragmented. Okay? But this is on a sad note. Since 1963, we've had about 220 coups and counter-coups in Africa. More than half of what the whole world has experienced. Okay? 220 by records of coups and counter-coups over the continent of Africa. And that is why a lot of people are still talking about leadership in the African continent. What has brought us to this all-time low is leadership. Leadership that is not properly focused, leadership that is not well defined, and leadership that is not primed for success and for meaningful development. That is what has created all the problems in the continent of Africa. And this also surprised our viewers, is the second largest continent after Asia. But it's also the poorest by way of GDP. It's also the poorest in spite of our many resources, human and material resources. But I'll go back to the names of the founding fathers in 1963. This list cuts across the entire continent. We had people like Nkrumah, who was a leading light in Africa at the time, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, they are virtually gone, and Abdel Nasser of Egypt, for example. Leopold Sédar Senghor, a great poet, he was the president of Senegal, you remember? Milton Obote of Uganda, yes. Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, a great man, a great leader. Dr. Azikiwe of Nigeria, at the point he was the president. Secretary of Guinea, he was one of those founding fathers of the Organization of African Unity. Back in 1963, Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. Yes, in fact, he was the first chairman of OAU. These were the people who put the Organization of African Unity together back in 1963. And they were well-meaning people. They were determined to see Africa take its rightful place among the various continents and among all the nations of the world. But down the line, a lot of things happened. Some of them were toppled, and some of them, the ones that came possibly after 1970, they went haywire, and Africa became a soft target for some European powers. The whole continent was pillaged, and Africa couldn't find its bearing. So, but that's where we are today, for instance. We are not having the right infrastructure in Africa today. we are not having the right health facilities. We are not having the right educational facilities. Electricity is still down the line. I think I can only count about 5 or 6 countries in Africa that have 24/7 of power supply on a daily basis. Right? Morocco, South Africa, Ghana, Egypt, a few others, maybe 2 others, down the line. So, but altogether, I think about 6 or thereabout. Rwanda, for instance. So, in the whole of Africa, and by the way, there are 55 countries in Africa at the moment. Only 6 can guarantee power supply round the clock. That is a tragedy on its own. Right, because the population of Africa is still largely illiterate. We are bedeviled by so many things. We are bedeviled by superstition. We are bedeviled by religious bigotry. All of these things impinge on the fact that we can't get it right. But above all else, bad leadership that is not thinking right. And one of the things why leadership cannot proceed in Africa is badly skewed electoral processes.
Okay.
When electoral processes are badly skewed, what do you expect? It throws up the wrong people. These processes throw up the wrong people. And then, of course, as I've often said, the wrong people cannot govern appropriately because it's a wrong process that throws them up. And you can feel them all over the continent of Africa. I mean, look at Paul Biya, for instance. He's been there for over 40 years, and it's 90 plus. So what do you expect from a man like that? Okay. Whereas there are younger people who are coming up. And I think that the duty of leaders in Africa is to embrace much more younger people so that the dreams of this continent can be pushed to the zenith.
All right. Some individuals are of the opinion that the Western world still happens to be part of Africa's biggest problem when it comes to development.
Because they allowed it. Over time, they allowed it.
Okay.
I mean, look at what the young man in Burkina Faso has done. The heavens have not fallen. He said, look, France, you stay away. We want to control our resources. If others, and our leaders, they compromise a lot of things. They give them money here and there, as long as you sell your birthright and all of that. And it has been happening all over the continent of Africa. And we've lost a lot of people in that regard, a lot of leaders. So, if you have leaders in Africa who are not towing the line of their colonial masters, they stand at risk, all right? And that's one of the problems that we have in the continent today, all right? So we must look inwards.
Okay.
Yes. Let the people go with their loans and things like that. Okay. Yes, and look inwards and build resources. We have a lot of resources in this continent, for crying out loud. This will also shock you, there's no mineral resource under the sun that you cannot find in Africa. Yes. Bauxite. Bauxite is the ore of aluminium. You have it. Yes, you have gold. Ghana, in fact, was called Gold Coast until it changed to Ghana. You have uranium, which you use to power nuclear reactors. Okay. It's crude oil, for instance. Countries like Nigeria, Angola, and the rest, they have crude oil. Algeria, they have crude oil in large quantities. But they can't get it right.
Okay.
Yes, they can't get it right. I mentioned bauxite. Bauxite is found in Ghana. Yeah, it's the ore of aluminium, which is necessary in the iron and steel industry, for instance. But look at where we are today. It's unfortunate.
You mentioned quite some names, and yes, over time you said that majority of them are no more. In this climb now, why do you think that most individuals cannot emulate such leadership tendencies of the individuals who came up with the idea of the the Organization of African Unity?
Yeah, yes. Because they had a mindset. Let us develop. They were the ones who fought against the colonial masters. All of these people. Yeah, some Nkrumah, for instance, fought against the British. Zik, Tafawa Balewa, and the rest against the British. But it's just that in our own case, we got it on a platter of gold. Mandela, for instance, fought his fight. He was incarcerated for 27 years. So they had a mindset. And they had these nationalistic tendencies, which many of the leaders in Africa today don't have. Yes, they don't have it. They don't have it because they think more of their pockets rather than national interests. Because if all of them pulled together Africa will have been greater than Asia. For goodness sake. After all, look at the countries in Asia. Some of them that are doing very well. Malaysia, Singapore, China. They are doing well now because their leaders over time took it upon themselves to push these countries forward. And if individual countries are great, then the continent will be great. You know, it's just logical. But Africa still remains the poorest continent in the world because most of the countries in Africa are very poor. In fact, most of the countries are below poverty line. Yes, according to UN records and statistics. So, but that's the situation, and it's very sad. It's very sad. A lot of people, including my humble self, feel bad about this. That with all our resources, human resources, we are still where we are because we are still tied to the apron strings of the Western powers. You can't let them go. I mean, I've said it here before. What do we need IMF loan for?
Okay.
For goodness sake. Because the resources in this country, I'm just taking Nigeria as an index, the resources in this country are enormous. So enormous. Look, we have tin in Jos. Then, of course, look at agricultural resources. Ghana is noted for cocoa. Ivory Coast, which later became Cote d'Ivoire, for cocoa. Nigeria is noted, all those cash crops, beautiful cash crops, cotton, rubber, and all that, we'll find them in abundance. But the tragedy of it all is we export all these things, then we take by imports, finished products. Whereas we can start the production from here and let market forces go to sleep. Then we attract production, and the end products also to ourselves. That's what we are saying. We have all of them. We have rubber. Malaysia came here, they came here to NIFO in Nigeria. So you have them in abundance, and you have beautiful weather in Africa. You have waterways, water resources. River Nile, for instance, is the longest in the whole world. Yes, it's the longest. But what have we done with these resources? What have we done with them? That is the question. We have forest reserves all over Africa. We have the arid areas, yes, I agree. But then look at Dubai. Dubai is in the desert.
Yeah.
What they have turned that place into. We have deserts in Africa. Sahara Desert is there. But what have we turned it into? Nothing.
Exactly.
It's just there lying waste. Okay?
Okay.
So the potentials are there. It's just that we have not tapped into those potentials.
Those potentials.
Yes.
You mentioned something that most countries, their citizens live below poverty level. But it is a different case when it comes to the leaders. They seem to be the richest in the world. Why this great contrast?
Because they are not thinking of national interest. Once you think of national interest, which can translate to continental interest, then you don't have such disparity. You don't have such disparity at all. And the question is, why must Africa? I used the term the other day, Nigeria peopled by poor people. Africa is the same thing, okay? The second largest continent in the world. Can you compare? Australia is also a continent, but can you compare Africa to Australia? No, it's also a continent. Or to South America, for instance, where you have powerhouses like Brazil and the rest. No, you don't even talk about Europe. You don't talk about Europe. You don't talk about North America, where you have Mexico, the US, and Canada. No, you don't go there. Yeah, but Africa, 55 countries on this continent. Yes, but where are the potentials? The potentials are being wasted on a regular basis by our leaders. That is the problem. Yes.
And so, if we say, like, we've seen youths come into governance now. The youths are gradually coming into governance, like we mentioned the Burkina Faso guy. And even yesterday, the president of Benin Republic was sworn in yesterday, 49-year-old individual. If we have these individuals coming together and they decide that we should have one unit, I've always seen that as a problem, that maybe that's the disparity we have. You have the euro, you have the dollar, and at the time you had the pound, which was quite stronger than all this. If Africa decides to come out with its own monetary unit, do you think that this might better a lot economically?
It has been on the table for so long, but we are talking about the desire or the willingness to make it happen. It has always been there to have a unitary currency. All right. I mean, maybe the leaders will say, oh no, we have the Francophone countries, we have the English-speaking countries, but these barriers shouldn't disturb us really, because it will create a template for the other parts of the world to sit up if we are united. Now, African Union has not done anything, and that's why I say it's a misnomer. When you're talking about organization of African unity, that sends some some signals
Exactly.
down the line that these people, they want to be united to fight common enemies. I mean, look at what has happened in South Africa. Xenophobia.
Exactly.
The African Union is not talking about it. They are not talking about it. And yet these two countries are in Africa. They're under the purview of the AU.
Yes.
Whereas in the days of Organization of African Unity, I'm sure that something would have been done, to call these people back to their senses. Look at Ghana here, our next door neighbor.
Yeah.
It has happened to Nigerians, and these are brothers, these are sisters, but the organization is not talking at all. Look at the even sub-regions like ECOWAS. ECOWAS has been fragmented by 3 countries, French-speaking countries.
Yes.
Yes. Mali, Niger, and the other one.
Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso. They have pulled out. In other words, that sub-region has been fragmented. What has AU done to bring them together so you can have a stronger force within the sub-region? Nothing. They've not done anything. So it's like a toothless bulldog, just like the United Nations, by the way. United Nations is even better than AU. Because once in a while they have aggregate of meetings, and things, United Nations Security Council, United Nations General Assembly. Where is the General Assembly for AU?
Well, the AU.
Yeah. Nothing.
And then it brings me to my next question, Africa and insecurity. There was a time, I remember, I'm not going to mention the person's name, quite known. He came out to say that Africa is jinxed. I don't know if you key into that. But then let us look at the level of insecurity. It seems to be one of the bane of Africa's problem.
Well, insecurity is all over the place. It's all over the place. But it's quite loud in some countries than the others. Again, it depends on leadership. A leadership that is not primed to tackle this issue will always have problems. Okay? If you go to Rwanda, for instance, you won't be talking about insecurity the way we talk about insecurity in Nigeria. All right? If you go to Ghana, it's the same thing. You won't talk about insecurity the way you talk about it somewhere else. So it depends on the leadership of the various countries to tackle some of these things head on. All right? Even in some parts of Europe, you have pockets of challenges here and there as far as insecurity is concerned. But in Africa, and good enough, except for our brothers in North Africa, in that axis, who are close to Europe, by the way, Morocco, Egypt, and the rest, they are white-colored. But the rest, Africa south of the Sahara, we are blacks. Yes. Except again for South Africa, because of their historical background, you have white South Africans, you have black South Africans. All right. But generally speaking, we are blacks. In other words, we have the same ancestry, possibly. So why can't we come together?
Okay.
And by the way, this is one country, or rather, this is one continent, to show you that we have enormous resources in terms of human power. Okay? Nobel laureates, we've had them from this continent. Wole Soyinka, Leopold Senghor, and the rest, Abdel Nasser, Mandela, you can go on and mention them, Kofi Annan. These are world figures from here, okay? And even in music, for instance, the arts, we have the Mother Africa. We have Miriam Makeba, we have Fela Anikulapo Kuti from Africa. We have Victor Waifo, our own Waifo from Nigeria. We have had Osibisa. These are guys who carried Africa beyond the shores of Africa. Osibisa, for instance, created a music genre called Afro Rock. 7 of them. 4 of them were from Africa. 3 Ghanaians and 1 Nigerian. The other 3 were from the Caribbean, but spearheaded by Africans. That's what I'm saying. And then, of course, if you want to go a little further, you can talk about people who have made sports so popular in the world. Starting from Dick Tiger, who won the middleweight in boxing many years ago. He was known even by the British imperialists. We have John Akibwa of Uganda. He won an Olympic gold medal in those days. Yannick Noah of Cameroon. He was into Wimbledon, quarterfinals of Wimbledon. Aoun Nduka Odizo was also in Wimbledon, almost got into the quarterfinals. From Africa, Jojo Okocha, I'm talking about football now. We have Drogba and many others who cannot spill out at the moment. But you see, that's to tell you that Africa has a lot of potentials, even in human resources. And I think that we have got to a point where we should tell ourselves that, look, this is the right way to go by way of leadership.
By way of leadership. And now, let us come back to the AU, because if I remember then, when it was Organization of African Unity, we used to have what you also postulated that maybe the UN should have, a kind of military unit. We used to have something like that under the OAU, where they were going, I know that at the time they sent troops to Liberia and some other countries.
Yeah, to Angola.
To Angola, yes.
Yes.
But now we've not seen such things, especially with the conflicts in such places like Sudan.
Yes, because, again, borders on leadership. Borders on leadership. In the case of AU, for instance, collective leadership. Yes, you are right. In the case of Organization of African Unity, I'm sure what you're referring to is what we call peacekeeping forces.
Peacekeeping forces,
Yes.
exactly.
The UN has it. And this is a regional organization. They should have some peacekeeping force, standing force, in case there's any conflict somewhere. We don't have it at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like every country is on its own to the tent, Israel. All right. So I believe that the OAU should sit up, and should sit up very fast. How many people have heard of AU now, by the way, in the last 1 or 2 years? And there are so many things happening all over Africa. So many things happening. And I believe that, yes, if we truly believe in what is good for us, organization like AU should be up and doing. I don't pray that it goes the way of the Commonwealth.
Okay.
Yes, I don't pray. Because we have a few things bind us together, really. Yes. Commonwealth is dying, okay, for obvious reasons. But AU should not go that way. Because we have a lot of things that bind us together, and we must exploit them to the fullest.
All right, if we remember very well, sometime last week, Togo threw open its borders that any individual who is passing through their country, although with a visa, has the right to stay about to stay up to a period of 3 months. Do you think such acts should be emulated? Let African countries throw open their borders. There should be no restriction per se.
I support that. I support that. Why must we have visas to go to Ghana?
Okay.
Yes. Actually, in the ECOWAS countries, I think there's that kind of arrangement that if you go through Ghana, Togo, and the rest, you really don't need all those documents. But if you're going far out, to Angola and the rest,
Yes.
you really shouldn't, as long as you're an African.
Okay.
Yes, and it must be made clear that yes, your passport, all right, but you necessarily don't need visas to go into those countries. And another thing we must strike at, the countries in southern parts of Africa are doing that already. We must diversify and create room for the development of our natural environments.
Okay.
For instance, Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania, they have made tourism so important. Okay? They have built a natural safe haven for those species of animals that are going extinct. And a lot of people from Europe and America, they paid a lot for it to go and watch animals, these exotic animals in their natural habitat. They're making a lot of money from it. So we can emulate that. And I think there's a future in that regard. What is important beyond all of this is that we should have a template for good leadership.
Okay.
Yes, I keep talking about that. Good leadership in the country, individual countries, and good leadership across the African continent. Right. Once we have that, a lot of things will fall in place.
Okay.
Yes, we'll have better infrastructure, we have better habitats, natural habitats. We'll have good facilities for health for children, good schools. Africa, for instance, as we are talking today, it has the greatest number of children out of school. And Nigeria is taking a good bite from that. Right. So, but these are things that are totally avoidable.
Okay.
They're avoidable. There's no reason why Africa should be peopled by poor people. There's no reason. Because it's potentially very rich. It's a very rich continent. As far as I said, there's no mineral resource in the world that you won't find in Africa. So why must we pillage them for peanuts? Look at the money that's coming to Burkina Faso.
Exactly.
Yes. When they said, no, our uranium is for us. France, you cannot come and dictate how much you will sell for peanuts, and then you will sell to other parts of Europe or whatever. So our leaders in Africa must take the bull by the horn and get determined to do it right. Once there's a synergy among all of them, then we don't have any problem. We don't have any problem at all. But the AU, because we're talking about Africa Day today, the AU must take the front, must occupy the front burner. There is a problem. The leaders of Africa must rise with one voice to tackle that problem.
All right, and just before we go, what's your take on the IMF as a tool to disrupt African progress?
Any government that is tied to the apron strings of IMF or the World Bank is looking for its own destruction. Because you see, when you take a loan, particularly huge loans, you lose your sovereignty, whether you like it or not. You lose, I mean, almost totally. You lose your sovereignty. Look at what China is doing in many parts of Africa. It's neo-colonialism. They're trying to recapture the lost territories. And what do they tell you? Oh, we'll build you schools, we'll do the railway lines and stuff like that. But they take your assets. Yes, that's what they are doing. It's neo-colonialism. And that's what the founding fathers were against. People like Nkrumah and the rest. And that's some of them were eliminated. You remember? They didn't live extravagant lives. No. Look at Julius Nyerere. When he died, before he died, he moved out of government and he had a 3-bedroom apartment. Look at the mansions people build now all over the place. Mansions. I'm not even talking of the number of cars.
Exactly.
Yes. Look, all these people that I mentioned before, they were virtually, in quote now, they were poor people. Poor in the sense that they aligned themselves properly with the people. They put Sarah Senghor of Senegal. Exactly. Yes. Sekou Touré of Guinea. Yes. Milton Obote, until Idi Amin pushed him out. Yes. Right? Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia. Zambia must be free. That was one of the books he wrote. We read it in literature in those days. So if you look at the configuration of what it was, they had a common mindset. Back home in Nigeria, I mean, people like Tafawa Balewa, people like Zee, people like Awolowo, these are great nationalists. They did not enrich themselves to a point where people were not pointing accusing fingers. No. And it happened across Africa. Immediately after that generation fizzled out, we now had a new crop of leaders who were thinking more of their pockets rather than national interest. Yes.
Well, we would have gone on and on, but then the CEO has his parting shot.
Well, the parting shot, I want to localize this. We've been having some primaries for some of the parties. I saw something on social media today or yesterday. Even within the parties, there are discrepancies.
Exactly.
Yes. You count 1, 2, 3 up to 10, then you jump to 30. You count up to 40, you jump to 90. I have never seen a thing like that in my life. And these things are real. Yes, things are real. That is not good for democracy. Where there is no internal democracy, the country suffers irredeemably. Yes, we must make room for the need to have very reliable internal democracy. That's on the one hand. Another take of mine is Africa must wake up.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of musicians have talked about this. You know, the late Sonny Okosun talked about this. Fela talked about this. Adamusa, who's in the US now, he talked about this. Many of them, Miriam Makeba shouted and shouted, Africa must rise up to the occasion. Yes, and that's because they believe that you have a lot of potentials in the African continent. All right, that's my take, and I believe also that 2027, let's use it. Let Africa use this as a new beginning for propriety.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being there with us. On this note, I want to say once again, thank you. Thank you, sir, for coming to the studio. Until we have another special edition, I wish you a wonderful day ahead.